was white, and Mildred, who was black and Native American, spent the early morning hours of July 11th in jail. They were tried and found guilty of violating Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1924, a series of laws that made race mixing illegal. The Lovings were then given an ultimatum: spend 1 year in prison or leave the state of Virginia for 25 years. Frightened and unaware of their legal options, they moved to Washington, D.C., where their marriage was legal. They raised their 3 children in the nation's capital, financially strapped and isolated from friends and family. 5 years later, they returned to Virginia to visit Mildred's relatives, but were arrested for a second time for traveling together. Inspired by the burgeoning civil rights movement, Mildred decided to fight back. So in 1963, she wrote a letter to U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy asking for his advice. Kennedy referred the Lovings to the American Civil Liberties Union, who assigned their case to 2 young lawyers named Bernard Cohen and Philip Hirschkopf. Cohen and Hirschkopf took their appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, arguing that Virginia's anti-miscegenation laws violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed African Americans citizenship and all its privileges. The broad and sweeping language of the amendment, they argued, made no mention of interracial marriage, and thus guaranteed equal protection of a human being's right to marry. Attorneys from the state of Virginia argued that the state's rights should be prioritized over federal laws, but the argument didn't hold up. On June 12, 1967, the court unanimously struck down the Virginia marriage ban and overturned the Lovings' conviction. The court ruling reverberated across America, invalidating anti-miscegenation laws not only in Virginia, but in 16 other states that held them as well. After winning their case, the Lovings were finally free to do what they wanted to do all along. They lived quietly in Virginia as husband and wife until Richard's death in 1975. Loving versus Virginia would inspire gay marriage advocates during their own Supreme Court victories decades later. For example, 2003's Lawrence versus Texas decision ruled that a Texas statute criminalizing sexual activity between members of the same sex was unconstitutional. The Supreme Court would directly cite Loving in 2 subsequent landmark cases that paved the way for same-sex marriage. The first was 2013's United States versus Windsor, which struck down a key part of the Defense of Marriage Act. And the second was Obergefell versus Hodges, a 2015 ruling which granted same-sex couples around the nation the right to marry. Few cases are so appropriately named as Loving versus Virginia, a case about one couple's brave fight to validate their love in the eyes of the law. Loving versus Virginia forever redefined marriage in the United States.
Well, that gives you from a different perspective. Here's another one. Here's another couple that is an older couple.
We were aware that interracial marriages were forbidden in North Carolina. So we knew that in order to get married, we had to leave the state. So, again, we just did what we had to do. And since we had to leave the state, although that wasn't the closest place possible, we decided to go to the Baha'i temple in Chicago and got married there.
So it was a challenge kind of choosing Chicago because that was costly, to get up there and get back and all of that. But all in all, we decided that was what we really wanted. Neither of us had visited the Baha'i House of Worship in Chicago, so we both looked forward to that possibility.
And we were so excited. We got there. It was a Thursday afternoon, about 4 or 5-ish, and just ran around watching the temple from all sides, and the poor lady who was the representative of the LSA said, "Come on, kids, get married first, and then you can you can look around all you want afterwards." So there was nobody there, family or anything, just two witnesses, and we got married, and I left that same day, and I think spent one night on the road, and we came back to Asheville to have our reception. And we were going to have the reception at the YWCA, probably one of the only places that you could have an interracial meeting. And so that was very interesting because as we were dancing on the dance floor, I pointed to some people and I was saying, "Jack, are those your friends or people you invited?" He said, "No, I thought you knew them." So we discovered that a lot of townspeople had just shown up to see if this really was going to happen or not.
Which was really very understandable, because at that time, as the word got around, I had some friends there, of course, and went to school there and all of that, so many people knew I'm getting married, and then who am I marrying and all of this. So I knew many people came to say, "Well, I'm going to this thing. I'm going to go see this with my own eyes." And they went there, and again, some kind of sheepishly, say, "Well, I'm saying, yeah, everything is cool. Everything is really okay." But knowing, and I understood that, some people wanted to experience this. This is the first time anything like this has happened in Asheville or in North Carolina that anybody knew of. But it was lovely. It was wonderful. There was no negative feelings. And by the way, several years later, after our reception there, my mother kind of casually informed me that there had been a bomb scare that night. She didn't tell me, and she didn't mention it to anyone, but later on she shared that there had been a bomb scare that night.
After we got married, within 7 or 8 years, we left Asheville. We went to Atlanta, and then we came here to Montgomery. So for our 25th wedding anniversary, we decided to go back and celebrate it in Asheville. And by that time, there was a very strong Baha'i community there. And they did an amazing job of publicizing this event, because we went back to the same YWCA, and they had arranged for interviewers to come and interview us before the party, and then they announced it, and they came to the party, covered that, and played it 2 nights in a row on prime time, saying basically how Asheville has changed, and we're so happy this couple is back here to celebrate their 25th anniversary. And in fact, our son Hami was then 12 years old, and we would be, because people had seen us on TV, we would be walking down the street, and regular people would just come and shake our hands and say, "We're happy you're back, we have changed." So that was a wonderful experience for us.
At the far sides and with Baha'i activities, I found myself with people, and that we talked about things that were important in life. We talked about things that mattered. We could talk about God and purpose and being and community and those things. At one of these meetings that I was attending then regularly, there was this, well, actually there were many students who came to the meetings from Warren Wilson College. And this particular night, there was a special one that came, really, really cute, quite small, foreign, whatever, but something special about her. And I thought, wow, this really, this is going to require a little attention here, because this may be something. And so that was Fafa's first meeting. She came, she was quiet, but there was really something special about her from the first time that I saw her. And I kind of kiddingly told one of my friends that was with me at the fireside that I think I'm going to marry that one. That was a little boastful, and at that time that was quite appropriate. But clearly there was something there. We were special, even though we didn't do a lot of talking initially and flirting and all of that stuff. It was just being aware in her presence and letting her know of my awareness and observing and all of that. Much of this was just kind of spiritual as to the vibes that were taking place between us.
Jack had been investigating the Baha'i faith about 10 months before I came. So it really felt like God was preparing us for this encounter. That first night that he's talking about, I don't remember meeting him because it was a big crowd, and of course I was meeting a lot of people. It was my first night at the Tuckers. So, but as he said, gradually, as we were involved both, of course, in the Baha'i activities, there definitely was a connection and a specialness. And however, in my mind, I had just come to go to school for 4 years and go back, so marriage was not at all.
Oftentimes, Fafa would be oblivious to what was going on around us because she was just being normal. And so, I remember at one point I had a convertible automobile, and of course during these times we would sit close together and stuff, and Fafa would just be completely oblivious if we're just going along and whatever. And under certain circumstances, I would kind of carefully encourage her, well, Fafa, maybe you should move over to the passenger seat right now.
Why?
And in certain situations, like we were to go into a restaurant, and I would notice people getting a little antsy, and they would stop eating and focus on us and whatever. And I would say to Fafa at some point, well, Fafa, maybe we should kind of get done. It's no big deal. Let's miss it, get on out of this place, whatever. But just knowing that there is danger, and that when people start getting funny, mobilizing, going outside and coming back and doing funny things, that it's time to get out of there. It's time to leave. And so I felt the worst thing that could happen is for Fafa or I to show fear. That would be an invitation. Like, they're scared of us. So yes. So how do we be in places that were often recently segregated? How could we be in these places? And knowing that people are sitting there burning, their hearts and their soul were burning. What are you doing? How dare you? These kinds of things, these feelings. And so, there are next steps to those things. And how do we be together and have our lives and be fun and all of that? And also navigate being normal when abnormal is what everybody expects and are confused by when, so again, those things were never far away from my mind. I mean, I always knew I'm in the South, and these people will kill you. They will kill you. I know that. And when you get that stony, cold look, and these people can't speak and talk and whatever, that that's on a pathway to something that could be ugly. And so, but that's life too. We're not going to give our lives away because of that, but we're also not going to be foolish. As a young person, as a child, growing up in the South, as a black child growing up in the South, all of these conflicts and all of this confusion and all of this energy around race and all of this required of me to make some sense of it, required of me to kind of understand what was going on. And I remember once there was a time, again, at being at home alone at this particular time, I remember I took one of my mother's mirrors, a little hand mirror, and I examined my face. I looked at my hair, I looked at my face, I looked at my eyes, and I came to the conclusion, I decided that my looks were okay. Now, in the South, there, everything hinged upon black and white, the looks, the nappy hair, the thick lips, the blonde hair, the thin lips, and all of that other stuff. It was a major thing. And so I decided, 7, 8, 10 years old, that my looks were okay, that I was satisfied, and I felt like as a being, God was satisfied with my looks. I was satisfied with my looks. And I decided that if anybody had a problem with my looks, my color, whatever, that they had a problem, and I was not going to worry, or I didn't have to deal with that. And that was interesting because at some other point, it became clear to me that there was a lot of hatred and suspicion and anger and frustration that also accompanied race, and that a lot of black folk really would profess that they hated white folks. Well, it's pretty obvious that a lot of white folk hated black folk or whatever. So, as a young person, it came to me that I needed to think about and what my place was, whether I'm going to hate white folk and which camp I was going to be in, so to speak. This was a conscious process for me. And so I thought I would try out, because being politically correct was important. So I thought I would try out hating white folk. Let me just get into that, to hate white folk just like many others around me, whatever. And, that felt like a lot of work. This is a lot of work. I'm gonna have to do a lot of extra stuff and carry around a lot of extra stuff to hate these folk. I mean, I can do that. I can train myself to hate them, because there's plenty of reasons to. Seriously. The fact that as a younger person, getting on the bus, paying full fare, sitting in the back, and when the bus got full, if there was no room in this little quadrant in the back, then we stood up. Whereas white folk, they came in on the bus, they sit anywhere they want to. When their space was crowded up, hell, they came back to our space and sat in our seats, and that was okay. And so all of those kinds of things, mother going to town and, in certain stores she couldn't try on a hat. She could pay for it, but she couldn't try it on. Those kinds of things. It's like, it would be real easy to hate white folk. To really seriously just kind of put them out of your life and whatever. But again, for me, that was the kind of work and the kind of burden that I decided I don't want to carry around. So what are my options? That I would deal with white folk on an individual basis and collectively as the way they are. I saw racism, I understood hatred and all of that, but I would not hate individual people. And as I dealt with them, if that required me putting them out of my life or discounting them or whatever, I would do that. But I would not carry the burden of hating white folk. Also, I would trust myself. I would trust myself to be smart enough with white folk to deal with them politically and socially in a sane and a correct way. In other words, I'm not going to take any crap. I'm not going to be abused. I'm not going to pretend reality is not what it is. I'm not going to go through all those kinds of changes. But I am not also going to become something different from who I really felt I am in order to respond to their negativeness, into their racism, into their insanity, into their craziness. I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to recognize that many white people are like me. They're good, they're open, they're honest, they're thoughtful, they're caring, and so forth. And when I meet those people, I would meet them on a level playing field, and I would go as far as loving them and caring for them and doing whatever for them as I would my brother or my mother or my father. And to me, that was freedom. That was my deciding that the whole system of race in America would not define me and would not dictate my behavior beyond what I chose to, how I chose to behave, and who I chose to be. That came to be something that really influenced my life, my work, and who I am in terms of race and a human being in a nation that doesn't fully understand what humanity is and is unable to recognize humanity in all of its forms.
I'm Augusta. Gary is about 16 years of age, 5 feet 10 inches high, rather slender in his build, and of a dark complexion, no other mark recollected.
Sorry about that. Now I'm going to show you another interesting tale of this historical event between interracial couples. Let me see. Here's another story.
This real-life love story of Mary and Jake Jacobs is so powerful and inspiring that you're simply left in awe of the couple who lived it. Interracial couple that was rejected by the society and families. This couple's marriage has earned a spot in history as not just one that stood the test of time for over 7 decades. Rather, Jacob's love story is a testament to a phrase that has been used so much: love conquers all. Mary was born in Britain and Jake was born in Trinidad and Tobago. They both meet in England in 1940s, back when being an interracial couple was far less socially accepted than it is today. They were ostracized socially, even by their families, but they stayed together. They were fighting a war of life and love. During World War II, Jake moved from Trinidad and Tobago to England as part of the American forces stationed at the Burtonwood base near Mary's home in Lancashire. They were both in the same technical college. She was having typing and shorthand lessons, and Jake was sent to the same college for training by the Air Force. The first day they meet, Jake was with a group of black friends. They saw Mary and her friends passing by. The black boys called the white girls over. Initially the girls thought they don't understand English, but they were wrong. While the other boys were talking to the other girls, Jake and Mary were having their private talk. Jake told her about the book he read, Shakespeare. She was very impressed and loved it. After having a private meeting a few times, weeks later they went for a picnic with friends. That was the first time they went out together in a public place. They were spotted by a lady riding a bicycle. It was an unusual sight. Mary and her friend with a group of black boys. This lady on bicycle knew Mary's family. She went to Mary's home and reported her to her father. When Mary got home that day, her father was so angry that he banned her from seeing Jake again. Because they love each other, they continue to meet in a secret place. After World War II, Jake returned to Trinidad and Tobago, but that was not the end. Distance did not affect their love for each other. They continued to send love letters to each other. After some months apart, their love for each other grew stronger. Jake realized he needed to be with Mary. He was ready to take the risk. No matter what their families and society think of their relationship, he Mary's hometown. They meet for the first time after many years apart. They were so happy to see each other. Jake, who was so excited and emotional, proposed to Mary. He asked Mary to be his wife. Mary never expected that in their first meeting after he returned to England, and she was only 19 years old. Mary accepted Jack's proposal for marriage even though they both know that interracial marriage was against the law then. Mary, who was so excited that she is about to marry the love of her life, went home to tell her father. She said, "Dad, I want to marry Jake." Her father replied with anger, "You mean Jake the black guy?" Mary said yes. Her father warned her. He said, "If you marry that man, you will never set your foot in this house again." Mary was not moved by the hatred from her father. She continued to visit Jake and insist she will marry him. Her father, who was horrified that her daughter wants to marry a black man, has had enough. He threw Mary out of his house and warned her never to come back if she insisted on marrying Jake. All Mary left with from her father's house was a small suitcase that contained her clothes. These two were determined to follow their heart. They got married in the year 1948. No family members from Jake nor Mary were present on their wedding day. They never mind. They were happy together. That was all that matters. After their marriage, they moved to Birmingham. Their first year of living in Birmingham was hell. No one wanted to associate with them or even speak to them. It was difficult for them to find a home, because no house owner wants to rent a house to a black man. They have no money. When people see them, they start pointing fingers at them, gossiping and using every bad word to describe them. Whenever Mary thinks of their situation, she will cry. But after their first child, which Mary had after 8 months due to stress that came from the situation surrounding their marriage, things started to change for good. Mary got a job as a teacher and was later promoted to deputy head teacher. Jake also got a job in a factory. Later he found a better job in the post office. With no family to fall back on, the couple slowly began making new friends. However, it wasn't always easy, as they faced a lot of discrimination and prejudice from those who couldn't accept a white woman and a black man being together. Whenever Mary invites her friend to their home, she will always remind them that her husband is black, so they can decide if they want to visit her or not. Mary was left heartbroken when her father died. Then she was 30 years old. The saddest part was that, even though she and her father reconciled before his death, he never approved of Jake as her husband. A few years ago, Mary and Jake celebrated their 70th anniversary. Jake said,
"I feel so fortunate to have met and married Mary, but it saddens me that we could not be accepted by society. Nowadays I say to young black people, you have no idea what it used to be like. When I arrived in the UK, I was subjected to abuse every day. Once I was in a public bus and a man rubbed his hands on my neck and said, I wanted to see if the dirt would come off. And back then you couldn't work in an office, because a black man in an office with all the white girls wasn't thought to be safe."
Jake said,
"The day-to-day cooking is my job. I've always done it, except when we expect kosher visitors. Then it's done by my wife. We men think we're always right, but we're never always. My wife and I are going into 71 years of marriage and we're still working on it. Unfortunately, Mary has a slight form of Alzheimer's coming on. The doctors are trying their best, but they haven't found a cure yet. But we're hoping. She's 89 this year, and I'm 93.
After 70 years of marriage, these forgotten war heroes are still very much in love, despite all the barriers that stood in their past. Imagine life when family and society disown you just because you married someone you love. Do you know that, even till date, there are some societies, families and friends that don't support interracial relationship, for whatever reason, I don't think is right. We are all human. Different colors, one people.
All because she picked someone of a different race. I'm gonna say this. That's really touching. That's really a powerful story. That he he loved her even till she gets Alzheimer's. That's a good man. Um, yeah, that's something really deep. Uh, that's how it is for interracial couples. This is the historical. I'm gonna show you another one I just saw recently. It was recorded 3 years ago.
In Parliament, the Conservative MP Maurice Petherick warned the Secretary of State for War, Anthony Eden, that the blackamoors consorting with white girls will result in a number of half-caste babies when they're gone. A bad
This was in
thing for
England.
any country. But in dance halls up and down the country, British women made their own choices.
My mother always had a real liking for dancing, and she would go to the Grafton dance hall, and that's where my mother and father met each other. She obviously took a liking to my father. I mean, he was very handsome fellow. I honestly think, looking back, that she was in love with my father.
Lots of land under starry skies. The black GIs had been in Britain for 3 years when the war ended. When it was time for them to leave, many of their girlfriends were distraught. Early in the morning on August the 26th, 1945, a bunch of screaming girls descended on a barracks in Bristol where black American GIs were preparing to go home. Singing the Bing Crosby hit, "Don't Fence Me In," they clamoured at the gate. Eventually a fence was broken in and they ran into the arms of their departing sweethearts. To hell with your US Army colour bar, a plucky 18-year-old is quoted as saying, "We're going to give our sweeties a good send-off," she said, "and what's more, we're going to go with them to America." Sadly, this was rarely the case. GIs had to get the approval of the US Army to marry, and permission was usually denied because of America's attitude to mixed-race marriages. And it wasn't just heartbroken girlfriends they left behind. About 1,000 mixed-race babies were now fatherless. Those earlier warnings about black GIs leaving babies behind had become a reality. A concerned Harold Moody sponsored a survey through his League of Coloured Peoples to assess the scale of the brown baby problem as it came to be known. Of the 184 women interviewed, nearly half had been unfaithful to their British husbands. The stigma of having brown babies, plus the fact that they were illegitimate, turned many of these women into social pariahs. "I'm shunned by the whole village," wrote one desperate mother. "The inspector for the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children has told my friend to keep her children away from my house, as didn't she know I had 2 illegitimate coloured children." So for many of these women, and it didn't matter whether they were married or single, hanging on to their brown babies in the face of widespread disapproval was just too difficult. A shocking number ended up in care.
My mother Sheila had me when she was only 16 years of age, and the fact that she was from a strict Catholic family, and then of course the fact that she had a baby out of wedlock, it didn't go down very well.
Shortly after he was born in Liverpool in 1944, Brian was put into care by his mother.
I think she had this deep-rooted conscience about it, and never been able to forgive herself, but I've never been able to blame her because she was so young. The thing would have been taken out of her hand by her parents, really.
Brian's mother took him to one of the few places open to babies like him at the time. Sheila was just one of hundreds of desperate mothers who came knocking on the door of the African Churches Mission here in Liverpool. It was actually opened back in 1931 to help African seamen who'd fallen on hard times. But within a few years it was turned into an unofficial care home for abandoned mixed-race children. Now the building itself is long gone, but memories of the place and the extraordinary man who ran it are still vivid for many of those who passed through it.
The minister of the mission, Daniel Zakate, to me he was my idol. He had this African smile. Once he smiled at you, you could do anything for him. You know, it really motivated you to behave.
Now, Ebony was a very famous magazine for black people in America, and they did a feature on the home.
Yes, they came to the home. This is Mrs. Roberts here.
She was the housekeeper.
She was the housekeeper, yes. And this is me in the other bed.
Oh, in bed?
Yeah.
It's quite a normal scene, really, like a mum
That's
putting
right.
kids to bed.
Yes.
So where are you in this?
Well, this is obviously tea time, and I'm just here. The cup is nearly as big as my face.
Tiny.
I was very tiny, yes.
When you have a look at that picture, what goes through your mind now?
When I first saw these pictures, I cried. For the simple reason that I saw how vulnerable I was as a child, and I never really perceived how small and little I was.
Pastor Daniels undoubtedly did an enormous amount of good, but as the Ebony article made clear, he simply did not have the money or resources to take in all those on his waiting list. The Ebony article really got to the heart of the problem. What was to be done with a large number of what it called brown babies in care? Who'd be responsible for them? Who'd pay for them? It would be, as the writer said, a crucial test of Britain's racial liberalism. Harold Moody argued that the children should be treated as war casualties, whose care should be jointly funded by the British and American governments. Send them to the States to live with their black fathers or with other black families, said others. But America didn't want its mixed-race war babies. A Republican congressman at the time, one John E. Rankin, described them as the offspring of the scum of the British Isles. You've got to remember, America had race laws at the time. So in the end, any thought of shipping these children across the Atlantic had to be shelved because of what the Home Office here itself described as America's appalling discrimination. No, this was a problem that Britain would have to deal with by itself. In the early hours of June the 3rd, 1949, local authority health officials, accompanied by the police, descended on the African Churches Mission.
They came without any notice. They locked Pastor Akart up in his office, and they forcibly removed us, not after a fight, of course. We were only little children, but we knew these houses back to front. And when these officials came up, we just gave them the runaround, hiding in the cellars and the attics and screaming. I can remember biting a few of the officials in my schools too, for them not to take me, you know. It's something you never forget. I mean, I know I was approaching 5, but you never forget those occasions. It's on your mind all the time.
Well, even now?
Even now. So it happened yesterday.
Really?
And I'm 66 years of age. So, you know, you always remember that kind of trauma.
The Home Office had decided it was time to shut down Ekate's makeshift orphanage. Brian and all the other brown babies in Liverpool would be cared for in state-run care homes from now on. sometimes a private charity. After 5 years, he was placed with a foster family, the Tabors, who lived in the village of Balsham near Cambridge. It was the beginning of a lifelong closeness, especially to his adopted sister Joyce. Do you remember Tony arriving at this?
It was like going home from school and finding you've got another brother or sister. It was fantastic.
And Joyce, did you notice that he was different from you?
No.
Really?
No.
I mean, here was a little brown baby
Yeah,
with frizzy
no,
hair.
I didn't. And it wasn't until we went swimming one day and I said, well, why does my hair go like rat's tails? And he shook his head and it was dry. And I thought, wow. But no.
Was Tony in any way, I mean, was he a trouble child?
He was agitated. But,
When he's agitated, what was he like?
Dad would just cuddle him. And that's when he used to say, all he needs is loving. He needed to feel he belonged. And he did belong.
Describe the Tabors who brought you up here from Balsham.
My father was very quiet. He loved his dog. He had a lovely dog called Barrington Dorby. My mother was always there for me. She was there for everybody. We treated all the same, my brothers and sisters. It was a happy place. It's a very happy place.
But while Tony settled happily into his new family, his birth mother clearly had regrets.
I met my mother, real mother, when I was 9, I think. She came to see me. And she asked me, did I want to go and live with her? And I said, no, I was quite happy where I was. I think I felt a little sad, I think, that she'd, sorry for her, that she'd come back for me. But I felt I was where I was fine. I was happy I was with my family.
Do you think about her now at all?
Well, no, I don't really. It's an awful thing to say. But I was so ensconced at home. But that's the place I wanted to be.
And what about your father, your natural father?
There were some periods in my life where I'd like to have found out. When I went to America on business and went to New York and thought, oh, yeah. But as a whole, no, I didn't really. I was happy. My home was in Balsham.
Tony was one of the lucky ones. He'd found his place in a loving, happy family and never looked back. But for others, not knowing who their real parents were proved to be a more haunting experience. This little girl's father was one of the thousands of seamen from across the world who flocked to Britain during the war, but he was never to be a part of her life.
I grew up thinking I'd been deserted. Our mothers died thinking they'd been deserted because they didn't know this story.
What happened here on the streets of Liverpool in the summer of 1946 was one of the most shameful episodes in Britain's post-war history. In a number of dawn raids, the police descended on the area, their mission to round up any Chinese seamen they could find. They went from house to house, loaded the men onto trucks, which took them down to the docks, where a boat was ready and waiting for their journey to China. As a port city, Liverpool had long been a magnet for seamen from all over the world. But during World War II, there was a huge influx of foreign sailors. Around 2,000 Chinese sailors settled in Liverpool after serving in the Merchant Navy. Many had married local women and had started families, boosting the city's already established mixed-race community. They thought they were here to stay. But the government had other ideas. Despite their undoubted contribution to Britain's war effort, ministers decided that Chinese seamen had to go. It made no difference whether that broke up families or not. Home Office minutes made their reasons clear. The Chinese seamen have caused a good deal of trouble to the police, but it has hitherto not been possible to get rid of them. Now, however, the China coast is open again, and it's proposed to set in motion the usual steps for getting rid of foreign seamen whose presence here is unwelcome.
and they're gonna stop right here. Um, I think the reason why, because they didn't want their women being involved with Chinese, like when they was wrong with the black guys, and so that was it. We ain't gonna have this happen again, basically. But that was on that channel, and it's really an eye opener on what back then what an interracial couple have gone through, and this is where it was. And from what I remember, my relatives told me, and a few older gentlemen back in that generation, during that time in the 40s and the 50s, this happened in Germany one time, and they was telling me that when the black GIs used to get off the boat, the white GIs would tell the German girls that the black GIs had tails. It's a true story. So that the German girls wouldn't want to talk. This is back in the 40s and the 50s. So yeah, so they really didn't want black men that were in the service get with their women. And so, but you see that didn't stop the relationship, because black men, there are some black men from that were in Germany during that time, and they probably did like they was with the women over in England. So they got with the women over in Germany as well. People like, were like my grandfather's age. But yeah, just imagine, like, dang, it's just two men, but like it's like black, your melanin is that much of a threat that they have put into law that a black man cannot marry a European woman. And Sammy Davis Jr. went through that. His wife was from Sweden, and his second wife, and he couldn't marry her. And I believe it was his first or his second or third wife, because he had the laws of back, and he was an entertainer. He ran around with Frank Sinatra and Dean, and all them people, but he was real popular. But he fell in love with this Swedish girl, and he had another woman that he was a celebrity he was in love with, but they would not. It was forbidden back then that celebrities, that you did it, that wasn't getting even threatened one time. So that's another reason why American black men have all. This goes back to the history of going overseas. So there was original passport bros. Our grandfathers was, man, but they did it through the government. But so this ain't nothing new. But yeah, it's like the women. It's sad what happened to them, that they had to come back, and they didn't want to get that impression. I believe that they didn't want a lot of mixed children over here, so that would kind of turn away, give an idea, because that's why they do that, because they don't want that influence going around. But even in places like, not only was America, but even places like Brazil, interracial unions. There's two segments of it. I recorded on here, and you can probably go to the website. I got down to this one was about how
for progress, for protection, gold, your strategic advantage.
But this was
You might not want to give to charities because you're afraid your money goes to stuff like this.
trying to do too long with this video.
Which is why from the very beginning.
So let's take a look at this article here. Again, this is from 2013. This picture is this is a photo of the singer Chiaguinho. He was part of a popular samba group in the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Then he went solo. Today, this guy Chiaguinho, he recently became the first Black Brazilian billionaire. But when you see his choice of partners, it's like it's almost the rule. You see a well-to-do black man, I would say it's almost automatic that he's married to a white woman. You know, there's just no way around it. And when I started looking into this, you know, with the spread of the internet, you had access to say, well, who are these people dating? And just time after time after time, it was hard to find a well-to-do, a black male who earned a good salary, who was married to a clearly black woman. It was just, at most, they'll be married to a light-skinned woman who's passing for white, but usually they're almost always white, right? And so this is a question that I was just curious about this, like, well, what's going on here? I'm questioning, like, how does this rise in black consciousness rise? How is it intertwined? And how do we get to the point where you're discovering this blackness and at the same time you're still finding this, if I'm a black man, I have to have this white woman? So after a while, it wasn't just me. Matter of fact, a lot of black Brazilian women bloggers, by 2012 and 13, they were openly questioning this. I was led to believe this wasn't a problem until I started seeing more and more black women bloggers writing about this question of why are all of our black men marrying white women? So articles like this, you know, problematize the issue a little bit more. They're willing more to open, ask this question that was kind of like, it was.
I'm gonna stop it right there. This video go, but this website's called. Those who's interested, it's called Black. Hold on, I just saw that video. Hold on. But yeah, you can check out this video. It's a long video, but I didn't want to make this video too long. But yeah, being a black man, they some people question, and then some black women feel like Brazilian women do, like American black women do here. They start questioning what's going on, why is all this happening, even though that there's probably Brazilian women with white Brazilian men, just like there's black American women with white American men. It's the same thing, but some people find it's an issue. But it just goes to show you the history that even internationally, and that's just a few countries. If you're a black man or a black woman, you want to date and marry of a different race. Brazil is one. England, it was common now, but I don't know how England is now about it, but maybe they're probably a lot more advanced than it was back then. But like I said, I don't know. You probably have to ask a black British person about that. But America has always been like that. America put the separation. America taught racism in around the world between them and the Western countries like England. They taught racism because they did it. They even set up the structure. I remember I was watching this video, and it's from Panama, and they were saying how even by skin color they would take the different people, and the Americans would come down, and they had them do that in like the early 1900s with among the people, that they will only have certain people work around the area, whatever, and it put a division between the light Panamanians and the dark Panamanians. And I heard Panamanians talk about this in Panama. So yeah, America, that's one thing it did. It has a history of it, and even showed the military might. But among the military might, there are some people that are racist and particularly don't want to see black men, particularly with other women. White men might get a little flack, but black men, and it's just, I think it's just a penis envy myself. I don't know, maybe it's a skin envy, a penis envy, stereotype, all kind of stuff. Why some people was forbidden. Back at that time, they just didn't want to mix the race because different races in America look, every subject hearing group are shown that black people always been at the bottom. You don't mess with the darker people at the bottom because they believe in their mind that they're criminal, the lowest of low, in anything. But you can see it's kind of funny because some of the paint ones, when it was some of them that were lawmakers, like from Thomas Jefferson and different individuals, it was okay for them to have a black wife. And he had descendants, or his descendants. You could see when you look at his family, Thomas Jefferson's descendants, his white descendants, and you put them along side to side together, their oppression from the black to the white, the way they hold, they sub, and they look just like him. They're just a darker complexion of it. So, really, technically, Thomas Jefferson was the first one, and he was the president, one of the presidents of the United States back during that era. Then you had other people that were senators, that were racist as I don't know what, but yet they had a spouse of a different race. Of course, anybody, Bill Clinton has an illegitimate black son out there that looks just like him. He's just tan with an afro. And Hillary didn't want that to get out. John McCain had a daughter. I think had a daughter. It's a whole lot of people that you would think is all American white. But there might be a black person, they dabble with somebody black, a black woman. But they try to keep hush-hush in the closet. And they didn't abort the child, they just put a cast to a side. Because it's a status thing. It's a status with most families. It's not just white people, there's other nationalities that feel the same way towards black people. Not everybody, but there's certain nationalities. I said on my video, there's certain people that they're not going to get with us. That they will get with us because they will get the same treatment. There's people about as dark as us, like, let's say, East Indians. They would never get with us. Most of them, if they do, they throw a shun. That's a fact. Even though some of them are dark as us. Just because someone has a darker complexion. You got other groups of people, certain Middle Eastern groups, they wouldn't get with black people. No, not no female and no man. As far as an interracial relationship, even I would doubt this even among Muslims. But you're like, well, Danny, they're the same faith. It's that skin color, bruh. Skin color. Because what has been put into the earth about different shades of people. But anyway, I hope this was an eye-opening history about interracial couples. I'm going to do another segment of it. Sorry the video has been so long. Hope you enjoy it. Share it with somebody. But I had to break down. And you can go to the different, you should see it out there on YouTube. But it's really interesting. Check it out. And yeah, and you know, all I can say, if you're an interracial couple, keep your head up. You know, I have a cousin of mine. Her husband is white. Her brother, his wife is white. So I love them both. I love them. So it don't bother me. Like some people subconsciously, it don't bother me. But to some people, there was a few people in my family when they first got together with their spouses, they kind of didn't approve of it. But I said, hey, they the one got to live with it. And of course, the ones that didn't approve of it, they are a mess all by itself. I don't even hardly talk to them. Not because of that, because some people are just a mess. But anyway, yeah, I hope you really take interest and take joy and learn something. And hey, this appreciates you. But one thing I thought it was kind of odd. Why did the gay community use this as a segment? Because an interracial couple is a man and a woman is two different nationalities. A gay people are two gay people. I'm just curious, why did they pick the interracial couple? Which yet society disapprove of it, like they disapprove of gay marriage, but it's a separate thing. Gay marriage, you can't have a natural baby. But interracial couples can have natural babies and bloodlines. Gay people had to go and get, if it was a woman, had to go get adopted baby, child, things like that. And if it's a lesbian woman, they had to go through what they get injected in order to get pregnant, or have to adopt. That's totally different from an interracial couple. An interracial couple could adopt, but they could have a natural child. It's part of the bloodline. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, it's the truth. But I just thought that's my opinion anyway. I hope you enjoy this video. I just wanted to make it long and paint the picture. Again, just the history of it. People thought that interracial couples is just all of a sudden this just start happening the last 20. No, let's go back. People been doing this for a long time. I've also got some other video that goes back to almost to the 1800s, 1900s, that were interracial couples. So this ain't just something that was there, and I'm pretty sure you can say for the alternative people it was the same way. They just kept it hush hush. But anyway, but it's an eye opener, and so it's okay who you love, who you date, who you marry, and if you love somebody, you have a crush on somebody, you love them like a spouse, go ahead and marry them. You see what their couples did, and you're not alone. If you're a black woman, a black man, or any other race or person, and find another race attractive, you're not alone. You're not the only one that went through isolation. That's why I played these stories. So if you like this video, share it with somebody. Till next time, you guys take it easy and be blessed, and see you on the next video. Take care.